Welcome to the Jag Bros podcast, where we are celebrating the Jacksonville Jaguars leaving London 2-0. We are three brothers who are diehard Jaguars fans. I'm Jack, along with my two brothers, JT and Joey. And guys, how we feeling right now about our Jaguars?
Woo! Let's go. Super Bowl bound once again. I am feeling the Jag fever.
We're back, baby! Oh, what a glorious feeling to be back on the positive side again.
Love it. Yes, we are feeling good. We are 2 wins. The offense looked better. Overall, looked really good, taking on the red-hot Bills, where we were able to come away with a 25-20 victory. Our team is already back in Jacksonville and getting ready for a big game against the Colts. But in this episode, we want to make sure that we give our overall reactions to the game. We're going to hand out some game balls to some of our top players in the game. And then we're also going to break down the overall offensive performance and the defensive performance, look at special teams and coaching. And then we're going to give you an update on where the Jaguars rank in the AFC, as well as in our division, the AFC South. Well, and as we get into the game, I want to go ahead and pat all of ourselves on the back a little bit. If you missed the Bills preview, go back and listen to it, because each one of us, even though people were calling us crazy on X for predicting the Jaguars to win, all three of us predicted the Jags to win, and several of our keys we can all put big check marks by. I said that it was key for our offense to get over 175 yards on the ground. Check. JT, you called Ridley having a big game. Joey, you said defense needs to have some big turnovers. Check by that. And then all of us mentioned time of possession. So pat ourselves on the back. Well called by the Jag Bros.
Yeah, it's been a great time over in London. 2-0 over there. Just what I said that the Jags needed to come together in this trip, and it felt like they did. They really bonded over there. They started playing as a team. You could feel how much they were playing as a team for the first time pretty much all season. It wasn't just one side was playing well and the other one was trying to carry it along. Both sides were firing on both cylinders. It was an awesome performance, and honestly, it was a lot better than the scoreboard even showed. I know it says 25-20, but we had 2 turnovers in the red zone. It could have easily been a lot more. We were dominant. There was no chance that the Bills were winning this game. It was an awesome feeling. We're going to go ahead and start off with the game balls. Who do you have as your offensive game ball, JT?
Man, there's so many game balls to be able to give out because of the great performance that we saw from pretty much all of the players, especially the position players and the quarterback, but it has to go with Trevor. I don't think he made a bad throw in the entire game. He was tremendous when we needed him the most on that 3rd and short, and he checks out to Ridley going deep. He puts a dime on him. Fantastic game for Trevor, over 300 yards passing as well as a touchdown. You can't say enough things about him and the level of play that he had on Sunday.
Yeah, huge game by Trevor. And another game ball, this comes from me on the defensive side of the ball. This guy was Mr. London, huge in both games, and that was Darius Williams. An incredible interception, going up, jump ball against Stephon Diggs, one of the elite wide receivers in the league. Snagging that interception was huge. He had the forced fumble at the very end of the game, and he also led the team with 7 tackles. And one more thing, he stopped the Bills' 2-point conversion to slow down some momentum. So huge game by Darius Williams. Game ball goes to him from me.
I said in the last podcast that he was a giant key in this defense, because we know that Campbell's going to play well. We will need Williams to be that AJ Boye to Ramsey, and he's really performed well, and I really like that game ball. My game ball for the defense is going to go to Rayshon Jenkins. We haven't seen that much of him this season. He had a lot of flashes last season with the strip sack in Tennessee for the win. Also, the pick 6 win for the Cowboys that we had in the overtime. Hadn't seen him a lot, but he played really well this game. He was all over the field making plays. I loved seeing his name called a lot more.
Obviously, ETN probably deserves a game ball, and quite frankly, Mike Caldwell too. I thought the defensive game plan to stifle Buffalo. I mean, we were a minute away from shutting out Buffalo for the first time in about 5 years. So incredible game plan we had. I thought we played a fantastic team game, like you guys said, on all sides of the ball. But as we typically do during every podcast, we do start with the offense. The offense could not have gone better to script. We had almost 500 yards of offense, 200 yards rushing, 300 yards passing. We held the time of possession for over 38 minutes during that game, had 29 first downs. And then one of the other key stats is we were 10 of 18 on third downs. We talked about how important it would be for the Jaguars to not only maintain the clock, but maintain some of these drives, and having over 50% on third down was truly remarkable, considering we went into this game ranked 29th overall on third down efficiency. What did you guys think overall from the offense before we drill into some of the more specific areas?
The offense was incredible. They finally seemed to put it all together. Trevor was 9 for 10 on third down throws, and the only one that wasn't a catch was the one that Zay Jones dropped, where Trevor throws an absolute dart, threads the needle through two different defenders. I don't think Zay Jones even thought the ball was going to get there to him. It kind of surprised him. That's why he dropped it. But it was an incredible performance by Trevor. Offense was really clicking. We didn't give up on the run game. It didn't start off well, but we ended it really well. That defense was gassed. And that was the number one defense going into this game. And we just did whatever we want with them on offense. It was really incredible to watch.
Yeah, and it is important to know that certainly the Bills had several key injuries. Now, there's been a lot of Bills excuses as well because injuries are part of the game, but the offense executed really well. And here's something that's been floating around a lot on social media. You guys maybe have seen this, but it's comparing Josh Allen to Trevor Lawrence in the last 16 games, and their stats are almost identical. Both are 11-5. Trevor has a slightly better completion percentage at 67%. Both are just over 250 yards per game. And Trevor has much fewer interceptions, which is something that we said before, is Josh Allen is hot and cold. And Trevor has a slight advantage in QB rating as well. And so this is why we've been saying that Trevor is right on the cusp. And if he keeps having games like this, he's going to be in the conversation of that top 3 to top 5 quarterbacks in the league.
What's crazy about that stat, Jack, is that 3 of those 5 losses came from the Chiefs. So if we don't lose to the Super Bowl winner, then he'd actually only have 2 losses right now.
Yeah. And the other thing about Trevor, just from an eye test perspective, it feels like he doesn't really throw interceptable balls that frequently. He has 2 interceptions on the year through 5 games, which is good. It's solid, but it's not like there's a whole lot of other questionable throws. And most of the time his incompletions are right on target, or, he's trying to thread a needle right near the sidelines. So it certainly makes me even more positive around what Trevor's ceiling could be.
Yeah, and really it's only 1 interception. Of course, it shows up as 2, but if you remember back to week 1 when we played the Colts, one of them bounced right off Tank's hands. And so, yeah, he has been really, really good with the ball.
Yeah, he was excellent on Sunday. He had 25 of 37, 315 with the touchdown. He also ran again. So 7 carries for 31 yards. There's just so many great things to say about his performance. There's obviously some questions with the fumbles, which we'll get to in a second. But I think it was so key and so clutch to see him convert not only on third downs. How many times do we see on third down and medium to long when he's hitting Calvin Ridley on an outside route? I'm pretty sure Trevor throws one of the best outs in the NFL right now.
That definitely seems to be one of his absolute favorite throws, is that out route. And Calvin Ridley runs that and the little curl comeback really, really well. And something also that a lot of people don't talk about is Trevor's checks on that massive third down when we absolutely needed it. It was supposed to be a run play, but Trevor saw that there was only a safety on Calvin Ridley, decides to check it. and throws an absolute dime to him right over the back shoulder, put it to where only Calvin Ridley could catch it, and a huge play. To have the cojones to make that call, change the play, and throw an absolute dime like that, that's elite level quarterback right there.
That's the type of thing that Mark Brunell and Jimmy Smith would make, right? Anytime you see cover zero, when there's no safety back there and you have press man coverage, Calvin Ridley should be one of those guys that's going to be able to beat anybody off the line of scrimmage, not to mention when he's matched up one-on-one with a safety and Micah Hyde, who is a plus safety, but at the same time, he's not going to have the skills to hang with Calvin Ridley on a route like that. And perfect throw, perfect decision. And it just shows you the difference of having an elite playmaker like Calvin Ridley out there. And you know what? Maybe it was the rust that we saw in the last few weeks, because he certainly came out of his shell Sunday, with 7 catches and 122 yards. It was glimpses of the performance we saw back in week 1, especially in the first quarter.
I don't really think it was rust per se. I think it was more of just the overall offensive scheme seemed to be a little different. We weren't kind of forcing it to Calvin Ridley. It felt like Trevor was spreading the ball out, and it didn't matter kind of who it went to. It was going to the open person on that play. Christian Kirk got some love. Zay Jones got some love. Calvin Ridley got love. It just felt so much more in sync than more sporadic and clunky and trying to get it to a specific person on a specific play, even if that wasn't the open person.
Yeah, Trevor played near perfect. He did have, however, 2 untimely fumbles, one right before the half as we were trying to have a quick answer after Buffalo scored their first touchdown. Another one in the third quarter when we're trying to build some of the momentum that our defense was able to hold them at the start of the third quarter. Trevor seems to fumble the ball a lot. Is that a concern for you guys? Is that something that you feel like he'll continue to improve on?
So I don't think it's really his fault. Only one of those fumbles was his fault. The other one, every quarterback would have fumbled at, because Cam Robinson absolutely missed his block and just let that guy come right on through, and it was a strip fumble. There's not much Trevor can do. The second one was on him. He was trying to kind of push and get outside the pocket, and the ball kind of let go. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of a narrative that he puts the ball on the ground after that Eagles game last year, but that was more of a monsoon. It was raining and he wouldn't put on a glove and he just kept fumbling it. And I don't really think it's that much of an issue. Maybe when he's deciding to run the ball, he needs to protect it a little bit more. But I also think if the offensive line just don't absolutely miss blocks, he's going to be fine.
And that's interesting because the offensive line play was very similar to the Bills in the sense of hot and cold. And so it was great to have Cam Robinson back. He had some big misses, which I do think is rust. He hasn't played an NFL regular season game in 8 or 9 months now after missing the first 4 games because of suspension. But he also really helped the offense open up the field on that left-hand side, especially on the run. And so we have to mention how good ETN was in that game. 26 carries, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 catches for 48 yards, nearly 200 yards of offense from the running back. The only thing that was sad was he tweeted later that he was playing against himself in fantasy football. So I felt bad for him because I think he dropped like 35 or 36 points, but he was incredible. And a lot of those big runs came on the left side. And so the offensive line did give up 5 sacks as well, but they also had some plays, especially on 3rd and 4th down, where they gave Trevor a good amount of time, which we haven't really seen.
Yeah, ETN has been proven to be elite so far through the first 5 games in Jacksonville. Now, he hasn't always necessarily put up the best rushing stats. He doesn't always score touchdowns, so he's not always the best fantasy asset. He is still right now the 2nd in the NFL for broken tackles, which is truly remarkable too, considering he's a smaller, slenderer running back, but he does seem to have great balance. He doesn't go down with first contact, which is so critical when you're running behind a subpar offensive line, and he's top 5 in rushing yards. So despite the fact that he hasn't always gotten the carries that you would want, or the yardage that he would want, he's still putting up great production, great job in the receiving area this year. And it's pretty clear to me that he's 2 or 3 rungs above where Tank Bigsby is so far.
Oh, you're right, JT. ETN is hands above better than Tank Bigsby. And I think we saw that a little bit in this game when they tried to bring Tank out and he just didn't really do much. You saw that Travis, even with a poor offensive line, can still make a play, whereas I feel like Tank needs to have at least somewhat of a good offensive line to make a play. Travis is just playing so well. He's getting those shoulders really low. I couldn't even believe that last run. He got so low. He somehow snuck through some tiny little seam and popped out, and there was no one there. It was an awesome run. But I want to get into the offensive line a little bit more and break this down, because that's where the only faults were with this offense. Cam was definitely rusty, and I'm going to give him a break on this game. He better not be rusty when we're playing the Colts. He's a pro. He's getting all this money. He knows what he needs to do to get ready, and he needs to be ready for this Colts game because they have a very good defensive line. And I called out Sheriff last couple episodes, and I want to give him a little bit of praise. He played better than he has in the last couple of games. He didn't really give up that many pressures and didn't give up a sack, so he did well. This time I'm calling out Luke Fortner. Oh my goodness, he had a bad game. He let Oliver absolutely swim move him, run right past him, and then get in the backfield within the first half a second of the play. He was getting just bull rush, pushed back into it. He needs to play way better. He played better his rookie season than he is right now. I kept hearing that he was stronger, and I'm just not seeing it. If he's not performing well, I think we may need to move Shatley to center. And Blake Hance played really well. The few plays that he played when Cam Robinson came out with his shoulder, he's played left guard during the preseason. I think we need to move Blake Hance to left guard, move Shatley to center, sit Luke Fortner until he can figure something out, because he's not performing well enough to start on this offensive line.
Fortner was really bad, and you have to also highlight the snap on 2nd and maybe 12 where it goes and they lose 19 yards and just absolutely crushes that drive where you go from somewhere around the Bills 40 to back to your 40. That was crushing. So, but you also had some costly penalties. Anton Harrison, our rookie right tackle, had 2 costly penalties and a few other false starts. And so the offensive line was not great. In some ways, I do think they were better because we did have over 500 yards against one of the best defenses, but giving up 5 sacks, a lot of costly penalties, and certainly the strip sack fumble at the end of the first half was 100% on the offensive line. So it seems like this is still a struggle area week 5, and it's just got to get better.
Here's the problem, and you guys just mentioned it. It's just about with every single offensive lineman. Cam Robinson caused the fumble going into half. Fortner was responsible for a negative 19-yard play when snapping the ball over Trevor's head. And the other issue right now for Jacksonville, unfortunately, is Walker Little went down. And according to Tony Baselli on Monday on the drill, he was saying that he thinks Walker Little is not only our best tackle on the team, but also clearly our best guard. And so the fact that he could play either one of those positions and play it at a fairly high level, and we're going to be missing him with an MCL strain for the next few weeks, is certainly going to be scary playing against some of the defenses that we're going to be seeing here. Really need him to get healthy. Not sure what you do with the offensive line. I saw a stat that Jacksonville is now the lowest time in the NFL for pocket time. So Trevor has 1.6 seconds to throw it before the pocket either collapses, he gets sacked, or he's getting rid of the ball. Right now, it's tied with the Bengals for the worst in the NFL. Teams like the Browns and the Raiders have 1 full second longer than Trevor does to get rid of the ball. So that certainly speaks to the plays downfield that Calvin Ridley can make and our ability to execute those time after time. And so I said last episode, look, the way Joe Burrow was able to have success in his Super Bowl run, even with a bad offensive line, is by the fact that he was playing at an elite level. And we either need to see our offensive line just go from horrible to below average, or you have to see Trevor go from above average to elite. I think what we saw on Sunday is that Trevor went from above average to elite, even if our offensive line didn't necessarily play that much better.
I agree with you, JT. Trevor definitely stepped up his game to the elite level and showed you that the offensive line doesn't have to absolutely ruin us. And I don't want to hate on Anton Harrison too much because he actually played really well other than those 2 penalties. One, it looks like the illegal man downfield, he just got confused, rookie mistake, and went way too far. And then the other one was a holding, but a lot of offensive linemen get away with some holdings, and he just happened to get called. But other than that, he actually did play really well. And he was going up against Von Miller and kind of shut him down and made him go back to the sidelines because Von Miller realized he wasn't ready. So I was really impressed with how he played, especially as a rookie. He's playing quite well, I think, other than a few boneheaded mistakes you can clean up. But at least he's blocking well. You can see on some of his polls on run plays, he's doing really well. Him and Little are definitely probably the best guys on the line.
Absolutely. And I did want to give a couple other shout outs. It was great to see Zay Jones back out there. He was able to help us really break what felt like a touchdown drought, especially in the red zone, where it felt like, oh man, this is just the Jaguars getting stuck in the red zone, where we kind of get bailed out on that 3rd down with a penalty, get a new drive, and then 2nd and goal, Zay is able to make an incredible catch there in the back of the end zone. So it was great to see him help really jumpstart and get our offense rolling there early. And then also want to give a shout out to Christian Kirk. He is Mr. Steady, Mr. Consistent, played really well, 6 catches, 78 yards, and he drew a big important pass interference that doesn't show up in the stats. So nearly 100 yards of receiving yards that he gained for us as well.
I'm going to start calling Zay Jones, Zay Touchdown Jones, because that's all that man does is catch touchdown passes. At the very edge, he's also Tiptoe Jones as well, because he doesn't want to catch it in the middle of the end zone. We got to put it right on the edge and make it a really incredible catch.
Always adding to the drama, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And so now as we look at our defensive performance in the game, especially the first half was incredible. So this a Buffalo Bills offense that had been on fire. They had only punted the ball 7 times in their first 4 games. And in the first half, the Jaguars forced 4 punts, several 3-and-outs. They really had Josh Allen frustrated in that first half. Joey, you called in our preview of getting Stephon Diggs' head, and that was something that was playing a lot on Twitter, was just him throwing that iPad on the ground. Even though he had a good game, it was clear the offense was not rolling until the very end. Huge against the run, keeping the Bills to one of their lowest in several years. In fact, their starting running back, James Cook, had negative yards, and you almost never hear that in the NFL. The Bills did get rolling and did end up putting 20 points on the board. But what would you guys say about the overall performance for the Jags defense?
It was incredible. And that 20 points is actually a little misleading because one of those touchdowns came in kind of garbage time. But as you could see, if you get in Stephon Diggs' head, the game's over. Like, they can't really, they more defeat themselves than anything. I loved Mike Caldwell's calls, making multiple different styles of blitzes. You saw Trey Herndon come on a corner blitz. I saw Rayshon Jenkins come on a safety blitz. Just different looks, trying to get Josh Allen moving around, anxious, trying to force some plays. And we really took away the deep ball, making them do little dink and dunks. And I think the absolute key to this defense was they almost got no yards after the catch. The tackling was on point. You saw a swarm to the ball. You saw Williams on that 2-point conversion just absolutely break on the ball, make an amazing open field tackle, which is very difficult. I played safety. I know how hard it is for those open field tackles. Just the tackling really shut down these Bills. You never saw anyone kind of break a tackle or do a little move and get extra yardage. I would love to see the stat of actually how many yards they had after the catch.
Well, it was big too, and you could certainly say this about our offense as well and the defense, was the Jaguars were clutch. In fact, the Jaguars led the entire game. Once they got the lead early in the first quarter, they led for the rest of the game. But the offense scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 drives of the fourth quarter. But the defense also stepped up in moments that they needed to. They stopped that 2-point conversion that you pointed out, Joey. They also, I felt like this was a pivotal moment where the Jaguars played really, really well in the first half, but were only up 11-7, and the Bills were getting the ball first. The Bills were starting to drive. They got the ball to about midfield, and the Jags just put the clamps on the Bills offense. They shut them out in the third quarter, which was huge because it allowed our offense to score and to keep the lead. And then, as we pointed out earlier, Darius Williams with that interception in the fourth quarter was the defensive player of the game, because that also had the potential for the Bills to come back. And Darius Williams just took the ball, gave it back to the offense, and the rest was history.
Jack, we've all watched the Jaguars for years. How many times do we see the Jaguars? Actually, you know what? Every now and then they'll put together a really good half. And I was sitting there at halftime. I was texting a friend, and I was like, oh man, this feels bad. Like the Bills just scored. We had our chance to extend the lead, and we fumbled. We go into half feeling like we should have been dominating, but we're only winning 11-7. And oh, by the way, the Bills get the ball first. How many times have we seen the Bills score a touchdown right there? Then all of a sudden, Blake Bortles throws an interception, a pick six, and a game that was 11-7, feeling like Jacksonville's dominating. We're all of a sudden losing 21-11, and we're playing from behind. And then we end up losing the game 17-31. And that's a little bit of what's going on in the back of my head. And you're exactly right. They come out, 4 plays, punt for the Bills. We don't get anything that next drive. Is like, oh no, we're still a lot of pressure back on the defense, 4 plays, punt. And then all of a sudden we start driving again to only fumble it in the red zone. And then you brought it up twice now, the Darius Williams interception. If Darius Williams doesn't intercept that 50-50 ball, it's going to be 1st and goal for the Bills, down 4, with the chance to potentially take the lead there late in the third quarter. And not only do we pick off and stop them 3 possessions in a row in the third quarter, but then obviously we go on that long touchdown drive to extend our lead, and the rest of the game is history.
You said it, JT. When you mention how it feels like we always kind of shoot ourselves in the foot and we just let that kind of carry on. And we saw that a little bit in the first couple of games, where something would go wrong and the team just seemed to kind of get down on themselves. But not this game. They finally decided to be that elite team. And even if you make mistakes, which they almost lost a turnover battle, they still didn't let it get them down. They would come back out and they drive it right down the field, or the defense would come out and make a stop. Even if you make a mistake, it doesn't mean the game's over. You just go out and you play the next play and you make up for it. You don't have to let it get you down. You don't have to let become a Stephon Diggs and start throwing things on the sidelines. You pick yourself back up and you just make another play. You don't have to let it kill you, and they didn't this game, and you saw the difference that makes with this team is don't let those mistakes get you down.
I would point out here for our defense, one thing that is a little concerning is we did have some open passes. There were several times where Diggs was running wide open, which is shocking to me as the number 1 offensive threat. And so it's just something to watch, especially because the Jaguars had not really played any elite wide receivers to this point. And it's something that I pointed out earlier in the preview that I would love to see Caldwell do when you line up with someone like Diggs, is change some coverage. I didn't see hardly any double coverage on him. And so you're not going to see this in the Colts, but in a week and a half in that Thursday night game against the Saints, where you line up against a top 10 young wide receiver in Chris Olave, I would love to see some double coverage, because at the end of the day, Stephon Diggs, yes, he was frustrated. Yes, he was upset, but he still had a monster game. 8 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. So it's not like we really slowed him down very much.
Yeah, but the problem with doubling Stephon Diggs is a lot of teams do that, and then all of a sudden Gabe Davis has a monster game. Gabe Davis
had a monster game anyways. He had 100 yards and a touchdown.
That's true, but what I'm saying is just because you take one away, they have a good enough second wide receiver that you can't just leave him all alone. I didn't hate what we did. I loved that we made them throw short passes, which is not what the Buffalo Bills want to do. They want to gash you deep. They want to do 20, 30-yard plays, and we gave up few of them, but we never let it really destroy us, and we'd give them maybe one a drive versus giving up 2 or 3 a drive. Making them do little dink and dunk plays is the killer to these Buffalo Bills, I think.
Yeah. And look, Harris and Cook combined for 8 carries for 9 yards. We completely had them abandon their run early. You didn't see Josh Allen, who also has the ability to run all over us, which I think is a huge step in the right direction compared to past Jaguars defenses. Right now, the Jaguars are actually top 5 in just about every single rushing category defensively, which I didn't necessarily see coming into the season. However, the only person that we've actually let run all over us was Bijan Robinson, but at the same time, it makes sense because we are already up 2 or 3 scores, and we seem to be content to letting him get 3 to 4 yards a carry versus giving up a huge play to Kyle Pitts or Drake London. So, like, I don't really have a problem with that there in that game, and we've shut down every other running back we played. So, I mean, Jacksonville is playing at an above average defense, which I think would surprise most of us at the beginning of this year. But the stat I think is the best for them right now is the fact that we are also second in the league with takeaways, where we're averaging 2 per game. The fact that we are able to create these huge momentum plays consistently is been now a staple of the Mike Caldwell defense over the last 2 years.
100%. This defense has outperformed, I would say, certainly all of our expectations, perhaps pretty much all Jaguars' expectations. And here's the really exciting thing is a lot of these guys are so young on the defensive side of the ball, and you have to expect, hopefully they're just going to keep getting better and better. Very well coached. Again, you pointed this out earlier, JT, but Caldwell called another fantastic game because the Bills going into this game, the last several games were averaging 37 points. And look, I'm not trying to harp too much on the Bills, but I am a little upset just of how much the national media has been like giving so many excuses to the Bills and no credit to the Jaguars. Yes, the Bills had some injuries on defense, but their offense, who was supposedly unstoppable, had almost no injuries, and the Jaguars defense held them to 20 points, got 2 takeaways. But I do want to circle one stat and get y'all's thoughts. So the Jaguars did not have a sack. Is this an area of concern for you guys in this game?
Yes. I mean, it has to be. We had a number of holding calls, so that it's clear that we were getting pressure. Obviously, there was a play where Josh Allen sacks Josh Allen, but because his face mask was into his own face mask, they decided to call that roughing the passer, which was unfortunate for him. You got to find some more depth. Walker is who Walker is. He's playing well. He's not playing elite. He's definitely not a pass rusher like an all-pro. That is what Ian Hutchinson's looking at. And so you have to find somebody else, because outside of those two, you are literally getting absolute zero production from the defense in pass rush, unless you're sending Herndon, unless you're sending Jenkins, unless you're sending somebody else on a blitz. We're not really getting a whole lot of pressure on the quarterback.
You're right. And it's definitely a concern. If it's not Josh Allen, then we're not really getting any sort of sacks. It's really unfortunate that the ref threw that flag, because that wasn't roughing the passer. That was a great sack. I don't know why they threw that. So I don't count that as 0 sacks. It's 1 with an asterisk, maybe. We definitely need, I think, possibly a new rusher and the deadline's coming up, and I think I can fix all of our problems right here. And that's Trayvon Walker is going to need to gain a little bit of weight, move him more inside, and then go get Danielle Hunter from the Vikings. We've already heard rumors that he kind of wanted a trade. I remember over the offseason, he liked the Jaguars Instagram page and started following us. And I think he wants to be down here. I don't know what it would take to go get him, but him and Josh Allen on those sides together, I think that could be a game-wrecking edge playing. And Trayvon Walker can still do what he does well and stop the run, but do it from the inside and leave the pass rushing and the outside to Josh Allen and Hunter. I think that would be an amazing duo, and I want to see Trent Baalke figure out a way, go show us that masterclass GM that you supposedly are, and figure out how to bring him here, because I think he'd be a great Jag. I think he could really fix this pass rush.
That's certainly a popular take. I've seen that a lot on social media, and there's a lot to be said to go all in. I think the only problem is, and I can't read Trent Baalke's mind, but to me, if you go and make a move like that, you're potentially saying that Trayvon Walker, #1 overall pick, was a miss. Because even to move him on the inside, I can't think of the last time, if that's ever happened in NFL history, where an interior defensive lineman was taken as the #1 overall pick. And so I actually didn't think Walker was that bad, but yes, it's a concern. And even with Walker's play, which we mentioned a ton, Walker had some good rushes. He actually missed a sack where Josh Allen kind of avoided him, which that was unfortunate, but there's really no other rush besides these two. Like when these two guys, Josh Allen and Walker, are not on the field, it feels like no one is touching the quarterback unless there's a blitz called.
Who cares about optics? Like this is this is when you put your chips in. You don't have your quarterback weighing you down as far as the payroll goes. You have $10 million left in cap space. So you have space, and you have draft picks that you've already proven that you may or may not know how to draft successfully. Use them. Go get a Danielle Hunter. Go get somebody to beef up this room. And fine, if you don't want to move them to the inside, move them to the outside, or just have a rotation of the three guys. You don't even have to get the Danielle Hunters or the most elite of the elite players. Go get a Campbell who is willing to rotate and give you 20 to 25 snaps a game, especially in pass rushing games, because that's really the only thing missing from our team to really make us a bona fide Super Bowl contender, is somebody on the other side of the ball as Trevor that's being disruptive. Chris Jones for the Chiefs, Von Miller last year for the Bills, as well as their rest of their pass rush. So yeah, absolutely. I don't care about what optics look like. Go find somebody, beef up that room. It's not an admission that this guy's a bust. It's just an admission that, hey, your team's in position and you could never have enough pass rushers.
You saw when Randy Gregory became available, the 49ers took him, and they already have an incredible pass rush. You can never have too much, and it doesn't mean that Trayvon Walker was a miss. But it also, I don't really even care, because look at the 49ers. Trey Lance was a miss. And you know what? They gave him away to the Cowboys for pennies. And they now let the last pick of the draft run their offense, and he looks like a machine. Who cares where you were taken in the draft? If you can help this team win, that's all that matters. I don't care if you're the 7th round pick or the 1st round pick. If you make this team better, then I want you playing. I don't care where you were drafted.
That's a good point about Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, because obviously the 49ers did move on from Trey Lance. So that is fair. Well, it's interesting to see, but this is, again, something we've been talking about for several months. And the Jaguars at this point, maybe they're being very secretive, but I don't necessarily see them making a big move. I do think more from a depth perspective than a splash trade here. But either way, it's something that needs to be addressed, because at the very least, if anyone goes down now on that defensive end, you're in big trouble.
Absolutely. Not a whole lot to note from coaching and special teams beyond what we've already talked about. So wrapping up this episode, we are now back at the top of the AFC South standings, 3-2. We're actually technically tied with the Colts, but we own the tiebreaker because of our week 1 victory. But we're right back in it for the AFC as well. It's going to be important to continue to build wins and stack wins. Winning a game over Buffalo was huge because we're going to now own the tiebreaker against them if that comes into play down the stretch. And look, continue to take care of business. The Chiefs look very gettable, how they played in the last couple of games too. So anything can happen when it comes to January.
Yeah, it's a little strange. We all thought that this AFC was going to be the powerhouse. And yet we haven't really seen a team kind of emerge as the number 1 AFC team. It seems like each week one team comes crashing down. Everyone thought it was the Dolphins. They lost to the Bills. Then everyone thought it was the Bills, and they just lost to us. I want to see who is going to be that standout AFC team, because it's not the Chiefs right now. They're winning, but barely, and it's not really pretty. So who is going to be that number 1 AFC team?
Yeah, I think right now it's between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Chiefs because they've just been in that position, and I think you are the champs until someone knocks you off. And the Dolphins, because their offense is historic. The numbers that they're putting up is just insane. But with a win like this, and this is what we said going into the Bills game, this is a huge statement game. And I do want to make this point for coaching. I loved the intensity that the Jaguars brought. And so hats off, big round of applause to Doug Peterson, because he had his guys ready to roll. And here's what I love to see in back-to-back games was an incredible start from the Jaguars right from the jump, getting all fast, getting that lead quickly, and then never looking back. And that's something that I think the Jaguars need to continue to have as they head home, as they make sure you listen to our preview, because that's going to be a big game. And in some ways, it could be what the Bills just faced, which is a trap game, because the Jaguars are coming in hot. They're 2-0. They've got the momentum. They just took down the hottest team in the NFL, and you need to take care of business, especially these next 3 games before the bye are very, very gettable.
You're right, Jack. And something I also wanted to point out a little bit on the coaching side is I loved seeing the first couple drives of the game. We were running a fast-paced offense, almost no huddle, hurry up. It was really great to see. You saw that how that kind of made a statement with the Bills and with our offense. It got them all coordinated and moving well. And then we slowed it down a little bit, but because we started off fast, I felt like that put us in the right mindset of the offense. And then the defense, it felt like a lot of the other games that the first series out of the half, they would kind of make a mistake or give up a touchdown, but not this time. They came out after the half and stuffed them again. And that's what I love to see from the coaching standpoint, to see the mistakes and fix the mistakes.
Well, that's going to do it here for the Jag Bros. Hope you enjoyed our podcast. We certainly enjoyed recording it, as well as enjoyed a 2-0 streak there in London. We continue our London success, which is awesome. But we'll be breaking down the Colts game coming up a little bit later this week. But if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Instagram. Drop us a like, drop us a 5-star review. For those that leave us a review, we will always read them online. And then we love interacting with you guys on Twitter or X with polls and everything else. But with that, with 2 successful wins in London, boys, let's finish it out one more time.